Do you think with, the change in precipitation index, the climate changes, the demographic pattern which has changed,
about 60 to 70% water can be diverted.
do you think the treaty is viable now?
So when they need water, we'll not send them. When they don't need, we'll flood them.
You choke the Indus Water systems from India, and Afghanistan chokes the Kabul River basin.
So ultimately, you're not choking the people of Pakistan, but you're choking the establishment.
Water as a weapon, water as a strategic resource, the fragility of the Himalayan ecosystems.
The infrastructure that we are going to create, these are also going to be strategic weapon for us, strategic assets.
The Pakistani army, the primacy of Punjab.
I think we are just protecting ourselves.
तैयारी अभी जारी है, इस बार पहले से ज़्यादा भारी है. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Cutting Edge, which stands on the very intersection of technology, geopolitics, and strategy. Today I am joined with Professor Anjal Prakash, a professor of the Indian School of Business, an IPCC author, and a South Asian climate change and water management expert. He's been my professor in the Indian School of Business while I was there, and what an honor it is. It's an absolute honor to host him with me on this podcast on the Indus water systems and the water wars of the future. Welcome, Anjal. So good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. And I know that it's taking, the show is becoming very big in a sense and it's making waves around. And I'm very happy to be part of this initial podcast on the river system, especially the Indus water system.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So let me start straight away. Everybody seems to be talking about the Indus Water Treaty and, its various tenets and, to me, this treaty was signed in 1960. It's 65 years, right? Do you think it is viable to have a treaty that long? And were we given a raw deal in terms of the distribution of water in spite of being an upper riparian state?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. Though looking at it in 65 years down the line, evaluating something what was point at the time would be slightly difficult. But let me just put some facts on plate. First is definitely that we had India and Pakistan was a hostile nation at that time. World Bank came in to mediate between the two countries, especially looking at the water issues. And we got a very unequal treaty. I think one of the most unequal treaty of the world is Indus Water Treaty.
Yeah? Absolutely.
Where 80% of the water flows to the other country and only 20% remains. And at the cost of your own state, which is Jammu and Kashmir, for example. So there were some pressures, I would say, at that time. Let me just point out a couple of them. First is definitely the power that India had at that time was much lesser to power to economically to negotiate. And World Bank came in as a big bang, Britain-led institutions who had tried to navigate through that process. That's number one. The second was also the magnanimity of India as a new rising power of the South Asian region. And probably Nehruji thought that it will be a good thing, good gesture to buy peace from Pakistan.
Buy peace.
Yeah. And the third, I also look at it in terms of, I think the magnanimity also followed from the fact that in Pakistan had only one river to rely on. We had other rivers also. And that was the time given to us. And at that time, probably that may have seemed right. But the only thing which I did not appreciate much is about the locking part of it. That means you cannot get out of this treaty and you can't even reevaluate. And that's where we were stuck for all these years.
Oh, okay. So that's very interesting, the locking part of it in 65 years. And you see, Anjal, in 65 years, which have, gone by, you have been in the Himalayas, the fragile ecosystems that Himalayas have.
Yeah.
And, somewhere down the line, do you think with, the change in precipitation index, the climate changes, the demographic pattern which has changed, all of this, do you think the treaty is viable now or it needs a relook?
Absolutely. And that's what India has actually done in 2023 itself. India has been writing to Pakistan to open it up and ask for what we call, re-evaluate the treaty. I've been part of IPCC and we have been looking at Himalayan regions. In fact, I've been part of a chapter on mountains of the world. And one of the mountain system that we looked at is Himalayas. And one of the major problems that we see here as future of Himalayas is that it's going to be much wetter. and you don't know when it's going to precipitate more, when it's going to precipitate less, then rainfall is going to be very unequitous in nature. And looking at the fragility of Himalayan system, looking at the extreme climate events that we are seeing all across Himalayas, plus the rise of population, the population pressure has been very good, very much on the Indian side as well as on Pakistani side. We definitely had to reevaluate, and in fact, we have been pleading Pakistan to reevaluate, come on board, but that has gone deaf ears.
As we look at this, what you're saying is so much of a significance. We are looking at what has happened in Guangzhou now.
Yeah.
What's happening all
Dharamshala
the way
today.
in Dharamshala today. It's so profound what you're saying. But, it beats me that, the Pakistan economy, which is essentially an agrarian economy, and 80% of this is sustained, the agriculture is sustained by the Indus water system. So do you think there's going to be a very major issue with water as a strategic weapon if we have to use it the way we are using it?
Yeah. So, so far my stand had been, and I've been part of some of the intergovernmental panel and also part of some of the organization that has been working at the intergovernmental level. I actually thought, and I really believed that water can be used as a means to peace between the countries, and regional cooperation is a key. And that has been for long, but I think the recent events that we've seen, and a couple of events before as well, my stand started to change. In fact, some of my friends who were past friends had not liked the changes that I have been trying to put forward. I have long back in 2023 itself, when India was pleading to Pakistan, writing letters to them, and it was fell deaf ears, asking for a re-evaluation of the treaty. I had written that India should be now ready to use water as a strategic weapon.
Yes.
Now, let me just tell you what it means, because, when you have, first of all, an unequal treaty where 80% of the river goes to another country at the cost of your own states, including Jammu and Kashmir, which has been a conflict-ridden state for all these years. In fact, some of the regions in Jammu and Kashmir has been quite parched, and they could have fed with the water that we have. That's number one. But also where the water is flowing. The water flows to a region in Punjab, which is also brewing what we call terrorism. That's the heart center where most of these terrorist infrastructure is also there.
Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Marid-ke, Lahore, everything's Punjab.
You name it, we have it there, right? So and also within Pakistan, the water is not distributed equally.
Okay.
So water is distributed to Punjab, and a small amount of water flows to Sindh. And in fact, that's been one of the major contentious issues between Sindh and Punjab.
Yes.
Because this is the Punjabi, elite.
Oh yes, hegemony. It's the hegemony.
Which also represent in what we call the army. At the same time, they also agrarian very, very rich.
Okay.
Come from zamindars. Their land reform has not happened in Pakistan for long. Water reforms have not happened. Let me just give you some points so that will be helpful for you to understand how it works out. So about 25% of Pakistan's GDP actually comes from agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
To put in perspective, India is about 12 to 15% GDP.
So it's double, essentially.
So almost double.
More or less.
And that too, so it's a very agrarian economy.
Oh, yes.
That's number one. 40%, around 40% of the workforce actually is employed in agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that it's one of the, backstone for a country like Pakistan to have the water that free flows from India and keep harboring the what we call the terrorist infrastructure at the cost of the money that is flowing from. Yeah, and that's where the problem also lies. So in toto, if you see, I have seen that unless you choke them on this aspects, I think it's not going to hit the core of what Punjabi farmers have been benefited from this, and also brewing terrorist and harboring terrorist, and also looking at the infrastructure that there is support to infrastructure that they're having. Altogether, this is going to be a bad thing for India. So I think we have done very right to put the treaty on abeyance. And I was one of the few people who had really jubilated when the thing came in, because this is something that some of us have been demanding for a long time.
So that's a very interesting point. Look at Pakistan everything is Punjab centric. Pakistani army Punjab centric. Pakistani agrarianism Punjab centric. Pakistani industry Punjab centric. Pakistani water management Punjab centric. So is there any other state in Pakistan, or it's only Punjab?
Also, look at they're very inefficient in water management.
Oh, yes.
So all the resources has been probably going to, where it is going. It has not been. And in fact, I have been to Pakistan 3 times before 2014. And I've seen the kind of condition, the poor Punjabi farmers, the poor Pakistani farmers also toiling. So it's not that there's a definitely class difference between the elite and the non-elite. And that's a huge one. So they definitely going to be at disadvantage level. You've seen all the war over just a pack of the wheat and all the things that you have seen in on TV. This is the thing which actually pains me to understand it from humanity perspective, but at the same time you also have to understand that war is is being brewed by and is imposed upon to us through other means, and then we have to respond in some way. And I think that's absolutely one thing that we must do. One more point I'll also like to put here is about when you look at the fault line in Pakistan, it's definitely Punjabi, the farmers and the Punjabi community that we have is definitely at an advantage level, because they are the elite which controls about 80 to 90% of the Pakistan's main services, all other places and all that. And then Sindhis are definitely at a backstone there. Others, Baluchis and all that, so they're nowhere. They're not even human.
That's why you have Baluchi freedom fighters now. I think they should be looking at getting a new nation.
True. And KPK, for example, also. And there's a Shia dominant areas, and that's also another. So these are the things that is Pakistan has to solve. Also, as you know, the inefficient system that they have not developed anything which will be using their own infrastructure, whatever water that they're getting, to use it efficiently, use it more equitably. All that has not been there because of the politics of domination by a particular group of people, which is Punjabis.
Yes. So, but, it's very disheartening actually. But, there is a particular level of, water management which is required by every country. I think it's 120 days or something that you need to, look at water, this thing. What about Pakistan?
Pakistan has about 30 days of reserve.
30 days?
30 days. It's one of the lowest in the world. And 120 is the average kind of, storage that most of the countries have. And that shows how inefficient Pakistani water management systems have been. In fact, I know some of the voices have also developed in Pakistan that's saying that what have we done to our own, why have we, all these years, have we not developed infrastructure which will also hold some water, and that has not been there. Also, the canal infrastructure that they have is hugely inefficient. About 40% of the water actually gets lost in the conveyance itself. So you can imagine if you're getting 100 rupees, 40 rupees just out of the pocket just goes waste. So you have to do with 60 rupees. Even that 60 rupees is too much for them because the water flows like anything. And so they have just not developed any strategy to use that water, because actually I think that they were taught that they never thought that India will be putting the RT on abeyance.
Yes.
India is seen as a soft, state. India is seen as a very humanitarian state. And that is what the advantage Pakistan has actually taken for all these years.
As I always say, तैयारी अभी जारी है और इस बार पहले से ज़्यादा भारी है.
That probably you know better. I don't have much information on this.
But Anjal, see, I will now segue you a little from Pakistan and now come down to China for a minute. Now you see, you make any dam on the the Indus water system here. There's a hue and cry all over the world. Oh, India is doing this. Oh, India has done this. Oh, it has done this, that, and the other. China has no treaty with anybody. It does whatever it wants to do with impunity. So, what do you think? What are the reasons?
So that's the polity of China, and in fact, it also shows the hypocrisy of China. And when you look at China-Pakistan duo, Pakistan is asking India to adhere to the treaty. Ask Chinese how many treaties have they signed up to and how many treaties have they adhered to. So I'll give you two examples. Definitely Mekong River Commission, which has been there, but China has violated the Mekong rules, regulations day in and day out, and nobody has actually dared to call them out. And entire Southeast Asian water system has been totally captured by the way in which Chinese wanted it to be. And in fact, that's part of their state policy, not to have not only water but other agreements, so that you keep them as as vague, and then that's used them as strategic weapons, in fact, right? So the whole doctrine that they have been following.
Yes.
And coming to Brahmaputra also, if you asking me that question, looking at the way in which one of the longest rivers of the world, Brahmaputra, and China is building very, very high dam there. It's one of the probably highest in the world. It's going to be, but we'll come to that later probably.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
See, I also come to the point that, it's water. You can't stop the flow of water. Now, there is this, 6 canal plan, which has been envisaged now insofar as the changing of the dynamics and distribution of water from the Indus water system is concerned by the government of India. Outstanding plan. But do we really need to just rely on canals, or do we need to look at major technology inputs which would possibly speed up the process and have more efficient water management in a fragile Himalayan ecosystem?
Yeah. So as you know, the Himalayan mountain system is one of the youngest in the world. It has been most fragile, and on the top we have climate change, which is a force multiplier. Is going to be toppling. It's already toppling the systems of water management across Himalayas, both eastern and western Himalayas. So this is something which is a very critical zone for us, and these are water towers, right? All the 10 major rivers actually originate from Himalayas.
10?
And 10 major rivers, and feeds about 1.3 billion of humanities all across.
1/6 of humanity.
Yes, and if you look at this, both downstream areas in the top, and then the Himalayan region, both all together, and this is something which has no parallels in the world, right? So we need to protect these systems, and same time we also have to protect our national interest, Indian national interest, if I must say. And so what I'm suggesting is that we must build dams, but the dams or whatever water infrastructure that we are building, we must be what we call climate resilient infrastructure.
Yes.
And climate resilient infrastructure is something that can withhold, say, a huge flood, or seismic zones like Himalayas are in, and it's in the fault line. So you also very, very high these seismic zones. So we must build, and then you've seen that we have built one of the highest railway bridges in the world.
Yes.
So not that we don't have the capacity and capabilities, we have that. We must employ that now at this moment. And as I know from my sources in the government, it's already on. So it's not that as we are talking, half of the thing is already on paper.
Excellent.
And I'm sure sooner, in next 3 to 4 years, we'll see things on the ground. My only submission actually is to make things which is going to last for another 100 years.
Yes.
And looking at the fragility of the environment, the infrastructure has to be also in tune with that.
Okay, so interesting points, Anjal. Climate resilient infrastructure. Now, let me now superimpose or juxtapose the national security dynamics on this. You're looking at a climate resilient infrastructure. You're wanting to divert water. You are looking at fragility of the Himalayan ecosystem. You can't build bigger dams, but you have the expertise. So, and then of course you have the wastewater management also, which you need to incorporate as part of the overall calculus. So how do you propose to put in this national security part on top of all of this?
So I look at it from 3 layers perspective. The first layer is definitely to understand the fragility of the system and navigate through that process so that you don't amend the system, but you go with the flow of the system. Same time, harness as much as possible. The minimum level of harnessing of water should be done. That's first layer. The second is definitely about the infrastructure that we are going to create. These are also going to be strategic weapon for us, strategic assets, right? Yes. So you look at water as a strategic asset, and you build infrastructure looking at the points that will be beneficial for you. Also, you have to, in future, if there's any war breaks out between, and we have 2 hostile neighbors next to each other, and that means that you also have to protect these infrastructure, and that means it has to be very strategically located, both seismically, renowned in a sense that it should not be non-beneficial for us, and then this has to be done. The third thing, which is also about military infrastructure, has to be superimposed on these things. So this is something that is a 3-layered understanding, and if we are able to juxtapose all 3 together, we'll be building one of the best infrastructure of the world, I must say.
Outstandingly put, and a lot of people have this inputs, and one has been in the uniform for a very long time, that when you look at the irrigation systems across the western sector, across the international border, you find that most of this irrigation infrastructure, including canals, you have these small little outlets which are a part of the bigger ecosystem, are built with a defense framework in mind, the defensibility, the defense framework in mind, the strategic framework in mind. So I think that also should be now the entire effort should be to put in the climate resilient infrastructures, the defensibility and the strategic potential of it, and the wastewater management. Will that be all right?
No, absolutely. And in fact, Pakistan has done that. In fact, we have not been able to think on that line. And in fact, when we have higher positions, especially looking at the strategic point that we should have used by now. But nevertheless, no, it's not later, better late than never. We should start thinking on this. And I'm sure there are people in the government who are already thinking on this line, but there should be a consonance between all the three layers.
Yes, very much. Now, how much do you think that technology needs to be now adopted? Pipes, various other aqueducts, various other smaller dams, bigger, nimble systems than to just put it into canals, etc., etc. Do you think there's a case in point for all this?
So unfortunately, what has happened is that there's 20% water that we have remained. Also, we have not developed much infrastructure to use that water. In fact, some of the water was flowing in Pakistan on its own. We have not been using that. And these are mighty rivers. Also, it's very difficult to control. As much as possible, we should harness as water, but not try to control that process. But at the same time, looking at the new age technology that we have, looking at the kind of the engineers who are making marvels in infrastructures in India, I think with the careful planning, this is definitely going to be possible. And to divert water through channels, through different smaller infrastructure, which can actually divert. So some calculations said about 60 to 70% water can be diverted, and the rest will flow. And we also control that water so that we can, that can be used as a strategic asset for us. So when they need water, we'll not send them. When they don't need, we'll flood them. And that's what it is, because otherwise there's no, I'm just saying this and I'm talking about this with huge responsibility, because the way in which their terrorist infrastructure, the state of Pakistan has been functioning and taking us for granted, I think there's more that we need at this moment to make it a more deterrent aspects of using water as a weapon.
Water is a weapon. Water, in fact, there's a common saying that the wars of the future will be fought over water.
Yeah.
And
that day is not very far.
Sounds pretty prophetic as we speak today. So I will now, look at the latest entrant into the bigger calculus, and that is Afghanistan. So when you look at Afghanistan, you have the Kabul River system, or you have the Kabul River basin. We all know Kabul comes out from the Hindu Kush, moves through the areas of Kabul, Jalalabad, and enters Pakistan at Attock. And then, of course, joins the Indus. And obviously, there is no talk of that water at all.
Yeah. Afghanistan had very, for a long time, they had a very interesting indigenous systems of water management, but it is not, at this moment, it's not modernized. So those systems of water management has lasted for years and centuries, I would say. But at this moment, I think they also need to modernize. They also have to, and they have a huge number of people who they need to support. And if Afghanistan wants to develop their water infrastructure, and they must also build a series of dams on the river Kabul. And if you're looking at the strategic locations of these two, if we are able to help Afghanistan in building a dam on the side, because there's no river treaty between on Kabul River between Afghanistan and Pakistan, that means they can.
So are they using their water for free?
Absolutely, the water is flowing there. So they're using through channels, actually small channels, and these are very manual, channels which has been there. And I've actually had the good fortune to visit some of the areas and work on some of these very beautiful, like Ahar Pine systems in Bihar that we have. But today's realities have changed. Those systems have survived for centuries. They are one of the best water, infrastructure, which was environmentally benign. But at the same time, we also have to see the new realities and then comply with that, including climate change that we have.
Correct.
So I'm proposing, and I'm sure this must be something that we should be magnanimous enough to give this support to Afghanistan, the Taliban government there, and tell them that we will build infrastructure for you, a world-class infrastructure.
Yes.
Which will help their water to be used for their own people, and that's something that we should also do it.
Because if you look at Afghanistan also, they also have energy requirements.
Yes.
And less, I was reading that except for the 28% of the energy which they are able to produce through those 7 dams which they have over the Kabul River, they are all outsourcing this energy from the Central Asian republics. So while you're giving that water to Pakistan for free without a treaty.
Yes. And this could be an area where they can not only generate a resource, especially energy, but they also use this for serving their own people, right? Pakistan also, for example, have been using hydroelectric projects on Indus River. And then now they're going to be having an issue because Pakistan already has gone through an energy crisis. And now on the top, you have a huge amount of at least 1/3 of the energy requirement actually used to come from hydroelectric process, and that will be also because any system which makes it very unpredictable is not good for electricity generation, right? It has to require certain kind of flow, and we know what seasonal flow will be, and then we can maximize our thing. But when you are unsure of whether what is going to come or not, you cannot plan anything, and that's where we can hit them hard.
You can hit them hard. So I am also looking at a scenario, Anjal, that you choke the Indus water systems from India and Afghanistan chokes the Kabul River basin. So where do you see Pakistan then?
Yeah, so this is where the whole thing is. I wouldn't use the word choke, but I will definitely say that you can reduce the flow and make this very unpredictable, so that they when they need water, they would not get it, and that's where the system will have a problem for them. And this is where the people will have to voice. So the major problem in Pakistan also that people, so voice has been suppressed. You have the political system, which has been, or anybody who rises above the establishment will find themselves.
Is there a political system in Pakistan?
Whatever it is, I'm just saying that anybody which rises above the system, above the establishment, will find themselves in jail.
Yes,
and that's what it's been. But there's an inherent discontent with the governance and with the people, and then the more it happens, it fuels the internal issues in Pakistan, which will be beneficial for India, because you ultimately you're not choking the people of Pakistan, but you're choking the establishment that plans to bleed India with 1,000 cuts
and perpetrates attacks.
Yes.
For no rhyme or reason.
Yes. So that's what we are not doing anything. We are just protecting ourselves. These are one of the weapons through which we are doing it, and there's no harm in doing it. That's what as I told you, it was very difficult for me to think about this 10 years before.
Okay.
But today I am totally convinced that this is what has to be done. There's no other way.
There is no other way. So water as a weapon, water as a strategic resource, the Pakistani army, the primacy of Punjab in the entire ecosystem, and the calculus of Pakistan, whether it is governance, whether it is military, whether it is agrarian, whichever way you have it, the fragility of the Himalayan ecosystems, the superimposition of the strategic infrastructure over the climate resilient infrastructure to build various other things, smaller dams, and so many other good things. Anjal, I mean, it's been an enlightening talk by an expert of your stature. Makes me realize and makes our viewers realize that, look, whether you like it or you don't like it, as I always say, whether it could be Anugachatu Pravaha, go with the flow as the rivers are supposed to do.
Yeah.
But what are your closing thoughts with the Anugachatu Pravaha?
I have been a firm believer that the Nadi ka dharma hai ki wo bahti rahe.
Absolutely.
And otherwise, because there's a lot of ecosystem that supports the river flow, right? But what if that the river is flowing and what you get in return is the blood? Right.
Oh,
and that's where the conundrum is there internally. We are inherently very peaceful people, but don't rub us in the wrong way. And that is what has happened with Pahalgam attack that we've seen. And that is the high point for me. And that has really, really pained us, right?
It has.
And we see the signals are very clear, and that means that you at some point you have to just protect yourself first, right? So I see that water has been definitely mains of contentions between countries, but at the same time it can build in peace only when you're ready to come and buy peace with us, and that's what I would say. Till then, we'll definitely harness as much of water as we can.
Absolutely. And my closing thoughts would be, as I mentioned to you, and I take one of the Indian Army's commands line, which has just come out as part of a film, "Tayari abhi jari hai, is baar pehle se zyada bhari hai." As I always say, and thank you so much, Anjal.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's been
absolute honor. Firstly, as my professor in the Indian School of Business, to host you here, seek your thoughts, your expertise, and some sagacity insofar as the water management systems of the Indus River is concerned. And let's hope a lot of good things dawn upon Pakistan to understand that things are not what they seem anymore.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and it's wonderful to have a conversation, and that too with you, which we go a long way.
Oh yes,
and I look forward to 4 more conversations on
absolutely.
Other rivers of which impacts India and other relations that we have from our neighbors. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.